All right, welcome back. You're still watching Morning Live. Now, Cape Town-based writer Alistair Mackay has recently published his first novel titled It Doesn't Have to Be This Way. Then this hot on the shelves debut, Alistair takes us to the mother city in the near future, where a vast arid slum is almost all that is left of the city after a cataclysmic climate collapse has wreaked havoc on the land. The book also explores the concept of resilience and relationships during a devastating event. Without giving much away, let's now rope in Alistair to talk about his latest book. Good morning. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Alistair, it's good to have you. In your own words, give us a brief description of what this book is about and what inspired it.
Sure. So the idea for this book came from imagining what Cape Town might look like if we don't get a hold of climate change and we don't stop the increasing temperatures of the climate. So it imagines a future Cape Town where it hasn't rained in years, the sea levels have risen, there is most of the vegetation has died, and inequality has gotten a lot worse. So there is the wealthier citizens have isolated themselves in a climate-controlled dome known as the Citadel, and everyone else is living through very harsh conditions. And I trace the story of three good friends and looking at how they deal with things getting quite scary and quite violent, and it's sort of a love story between some of them and finding the resilience in each other and in human relationships and trying to refine what's important in life in this state of quite a scary future.
The title of the book, It Doesn't Have to Be This Way. Break it down for us and its significance to the story.
So within the story, there's a very literal meaning where the title comes from. There's a campaign that two of the characters work on where this is the tagline. But I think more broadly, what I'm trying to hint at is that I think that we are sort of stumbling into this future of climate catastrophe without treating it with the urgency it requires. And I think things could get very ugly if we don't treat this with some urgency. And so it's also a bit of a warning call to say, you know, this is a potential future for the world and for Cape Town specifically, but the world in general. But it doesn't have to be this way. There are still things that we can do to avert this disaster. We just need to sort of wake up to the imminent danger that I think we might be in.
I mean, the book is also told from three perspectives. That's through the characters of Lutando, Viwe, and Malcolm. Take us through these characters and their different narratives.
Sure. So I'm not sure if all writers work like this, but I think there's a little bit of myself in all three of the main characters. I tried to channel some of my anxieties around climate change, and I guess just what you see in South Africa already in terms of the very high inequality rate. So the three characters, Lutando, as you mentioned, I think is the most sort of idealistic and the most hopeful of the characters. He's a fighter. He's trying to fight for what's right. He learns to love himself and believe in himself. His partner, Viwe, is really struggling with fear. He's very afraid of where the world is heading and afraid of what that means for himself. And he struggles a lot with anxiety. And he, I won't give too much away about his storyline. And then the third character, Malcolm, is he sort of copes by using digital distraction. So he in this world, technology becomes more and more invasive in our lives as it's already becoming in reality. But you get there are chips implanted in some people so that they can have virtual reality at any moment they like. And so he just spends his time sort of in virtual reality, avoiding what's going on around him.
I want to touch a little bit on Citadel, which seems to be, the only structure that's spared from the harsh realities of the outside world.
Yes, that's right. So I've taken the idea of I guess how privilege can isolate people in a certain way. I don't think it'll isolate them forever from what's coming if climate change gets bad. But yes, I've taken South Africa already has quite dystopian levels of inequality, and I wanted to really lean into that and show how nightmarish that can be. And so some of the citizens of Cape Town have withdrawn into this private, security guarded kind of like an enclosed estate, but it's also climate controlled. It's walled off from the rest of the city, and they've totally isolated themselves from what's going on around them. And the citizens within the Citadel are the wealthier ones. They have access to food. They have access to clean water. They are the ones who are usually spending their time in virtual reality. They can cushion themselves a bit from reality.
Yeah. The other thing as well is the element of technology and obviously the digital age that people are sort of consumed by, especially virtual reality that makes them oblivious to what is really going on.
Yes, absolutely. There's a term, I'm sure you've heard it, but calling it a digital pacifier. It's almost like now that we're becoming more and more connected, we're also more and more isolated in a way, and we're less in the real world and less with each other in the real world. So people are turning more and more to constant distraction, and we have endless supplies of, whether it's social media or streaming services. So I sort of just extrapolate that into the future where it's available all the time without even having to need a device nearby. You don't even need a cell phone. You can just access it whenever.
This is a story.
And how hard it is to resist that. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Now, this is a story about, resilience and our capacity for love in the face of fear. And we see this in Lutando and Viva's storyline. Tell us more about this. I know you said you don't want to give away too much. Tell us a little bit, the little that you can tell us.
Sure. So I didn't want this to be a very bleak book. It is quite a scary topic that I'm tackling, and I do, as I said, I do want it to be a bit of a warning to say that we need to do something about climate change. But I want to also show how important human relationships are, and especially with the technology angle, as you've mentioned. I think in some ways we're forgetting that, and in some ways that's been one of the joys of the pandemic. One of the few joys of the pandemic is that I think we have reevaluated what's important, and we have made more time for the people who are important to us. And I think throughout this book, even as life gets scarier for all of the characters, they rely on each other more and more, and they reevaluate their priorities, and they come to realize how much they mean to each other. So it's kind of a love story in the midst of all of this crazy climate chaos.
Now, it's interesting how you tap into the concept of human memory from the technology point of view, especially, when we look at how Malcolm views it. Speak to us more about this.
Yes. So one of the ideas with the technology is that we because it's sort of embedded, we have access to dreams that can be recorded and shared, and memories that can be recorded and shared. And Malcolm sort of becomes obsessed with the idea that we can make our pain go away by eradicating certain memories. And so there's an interesting idea here that I'm trying to explore, which I think is very relevant to South Africa, where there is a lot of trauma, but sort of it's a mental health angle of looking at trauma and memory and how best to deal with that, whether sort of deleting it can count as healing, or whether we need to work through it in order to reach some sort of inner peace and joy.
So you had a book signing yesterday at the book lounge. How did that go?
I did. It was fun. This is my first novel, so this is all new for me. So it was very exciting. It was nice to see people coming out and chatting to me about the book. A few people have read it already, and they said that they really enjoyed it. So that was quite a rush.
Whose opinion were you most anxious about with writing this book? If this person, it's important that they actually like it, or their criticism or their analysis or review of the book was important to you?
That's a tough one. I guess there's sort of different types of people whose opinions I was really worried about. So Mervyn, who actually runs the bookstore, spoke to me yesterday, and I really respect his opinion and the books that he recommends. And he told me that he loved it. So that felt very good. So there's the kind of literary scene, and I would love to be respected by them and for them to enjoy the book. There's also the more personal stuff in terms of having my friends read this. And having my mother read it, for example, because there are some quite raunchy sex scenes in it. So it's quite interesting to see how they'll respond to that.
Look, you're never too old for your mother's opinion, hey?
Exactly.
Alistair, thank you so much. Good luck with the book. Enjoy Cape Town. Alistair Mackay is a Cape Town-based writer, and he was speaking to us about his fresh on the shelves book, It Doesn't Have to Be This Way. All right, let's take a quick ad break. Go back after this. Stay with us.